What if the history of our world is missing its most important chapter? What if, beneath kilometers of eternal ice in Antarctica, there lies not just rock and snow, but the ruins of a civilization far more advanced than our own? Why do the world's most powerful nations guard this frozen continent so jealously, prohibiting us from exploring its depths? What did Admiral Richard Byrd see during his secret expedition in 1947 that made him order his fleet to retreat in terror? And how is it possible that maps drawn in the 16th century show Antarctica without any ice at all? Tonight, we open the forbidden archives. We will connect the dots between modern satellite anomalies, the ancient Indian Vedas, and the lost technology of the Vimanas. You are about to enter a world of forgotten truths. Welcome to Bedtime Chronicles. Now, let go of the day. Find a comfortable position and close your eyes. Take a deep, slow breath in, filling your lungs with calm, and let it out, releasing all tension. Imagine you are standing at the edge of the world. The air is crisp and cold. The sky is a deep, endless indigo, filled with stars that shine brighter than you have ever seen. All around you is silence, the kind of silence that has existed for millions of years. The only sound is the wind, whispering secrets over the white dunes of snow. Let this silence wrap around you like a warm blanket. You are safe here. You are merely an observer of time. As we journey back to a time before the ice took over, back to the beginning. Our story does not begin with modern icebreakers or satellites. It begins in the dust and shadows of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The year is 1929. Historians are sifting through piles of disregarded documents, smelling of old leather and time. Suddenly, they find a fragment of a map drawn on gazelle skin. It was rolled up and forgotten on a shelf. The map bore the date 1513. It was signed by the famous Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. At first glance, it seemed like just another navigational chart of the Atlantic Ocean. It showed the coast of West Africa with remarkable detail. It showed the eastern coast of South America. But then, the historians looked at the bottom of the map, and they froze. Tracing down from the tip of South America, Piri Reis had drawn a coastline that continued eastward. It showed bays. It showed rivers. It showed mountain ranges. It depicted a massive landmass in the south. According to our history books, Antarctica was not discovered until 1820, 300 years after this map was drawn. But that is not the most terrifying part. The map didn't just show Antarctica, it showed Antarctica green. It showed the continent before it was covered in ice. In the 1950s, the map was sent to the US Air Force for analysis. Experts in cartography compared the Piri Reis map with modern seismic surveys of the Antarctic ice cap. These surveys use sound waves to see the land buried underneath the mile-thick ice. The result was shocking. The map was accurate. The coastline drawn by Piri Reis in 1513 perfectly matched the landmass of Queen Maud Land as it exists under the ice. This creates a paradox that modern science struggles to explain. Geologists tell us that Queen Maud Land has been covered in ice for at least 6,000 years. Some say millions. So who was looking at Antarctica 6,000 years ago? Who had the technology to map a continent that no human should have been able to see? Piri Reis himself gave us the answer, written in the notes on the side of the map. He wrote that he did not create this work himself. He compiled it from 20 older maps. He mentioned maps from the time of Alexander the Great and maps that were far, far older. This implies something profound. It implies that the knowledge of the world's geography was inherited from a civilization that existed in deep antiquity, a civilization that had the ability to travel the globe, a civilization that saw the South Pole not as a frozen wasteland, but as a habitable tropical home. But Piri Reis was not the only one. In 1531, another cartographer named Oronteus Phineus drew a map of the world that depicts the entire continent of Antarctica with startling clarity. Unlike modern maps that show only the ice shelf, the Oronteus Phineus map shows mountain ranges and rivers flowing from the interior of the continent into the sea. For rivers to flow, the temperature must be above freezing. It suggests a time when the Ross Sea was not a solid block of ice, but an open bay where ships could sail. Imagine the implication. If these maps are based on real data, then someone was flying over or sailing around Antarctica when it was a temperate paradise. They saw forests where we see glaciers. They saw cities where we see snowdrifts. The maps of the ancient sea kings tell us that the world was once very different. They tell us that the ice is a recent arrival. And if the ice is recent, then the catastrophe that brought it must have been sudden. It must have been violent. The enigma deepens when we look at a map produced even later, in 1737, by the French geographer Philippe Boissy. Boissy was a brilliant man, a member of the Academy of Sciences. His map of Antarctica shows something that defies all logic for the 18th century. He depicts Antarctica not as a single solid continent, but as two large islands separated by a frozen waterway running through the center. For 200 years, scientists laughed at this. They knew Antarctica was a solid landmass. But in 1958, the International Geophysical Year changed everything. Extensive surveys proved that underneath the ice, Antarctica is indeed an archipelago. It is divided. The Transantarctic Mountains separate the two halves. Philippe Boissy was right. But how did he know? He claimed to have used maps brought from China, maps that were thousands of years old. The evidence is mounting. Piri Reis, Oronteus Phineus, Philippe Boissy. They all point to the same conclusion. Someone mapped the Earth before history began. Someone mapped it from the sky. In the ancient texts of India, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, there are descriptions of the Earth that look nothing like the world we know today. They speak of lands that no longer exist. They speak of the White Island, Shveta Dvipa, located in the far south. But they do not describe it as a land of death. They describe it as the home of the great rishis, the sages. A land of light, a land where the sun shines for 6 months at a time. Is it possible that Shveta Dvipa is Antarctica? Is it possible that the gods of the Vedic texts, the beings who flew in the Vimanas, made their home on this southern continent? It would make perfect sense. It is isolated. It is protected by vast oceans. It is the perfect place to build a civilization away from the primitive tribes of the rest of the world. And if they were there, they must have left something behind. You cannot have a civilization without cities. You cannot have cities without temples, without libraries, without monuments. If Antarctica was green, it was inhabited. And if it was inhabited, then beneath the 2 miles of ice that now cover the land, the ruins of that civilization are still waiting. Imagine the state of preservation. We have seen how ice preserves. We have found the bodies of ancient men in the Alps, looking like they fell asleep yesterday. We have found mammoths in the permafrost with their hair and skin intact. Ice is the ultimate preserver. It stops time. Down there, in the dark, in the frozen silence of the subglacial valleys, there could be entire cities standing exactly as they did 10,000 years ago. Streets, houses, machines, perhaps even bodies, flash frozen in a moment of cosmic violence. But what could cause an entire continent to freeze so quickly? What mechanism could turn a tropical paradise into a polar hell in the blink of an eye? To understand this, we must leave the maps behind and look at the planet itself. We must look at the ground beneath our feet and realize that it is not as stable as we think. We must explore the terrifying theory that kept Einstein awake at night, the theory of the Great Shift. To understand the fate of Antarctica, we must look at a theory that was championed by Professor Charles Hapgood in the 1950s. It was a radical idea, one that challenged the slow, gradual view of geology. He called it Earth crust displacement. Imagine the Earth. We think of it as a solid rock, stable and unmoving beneath our feet. But in reality, the ground we stand on, the lithosphere, is a thin shell, barely 30 miles thick. Beneath this shell lies the mantle, a sea of molten rock and magma. Hapgood suggested that the outer shell is not fused to the interior. It is loose, like the skin of an orange that has been separated from the fruit inside. Under normal conditions, the crust spins in perfect sync with the core. But Hapgood believed that if the balance of the Earth were disturbed, perhaps by the massive accumulation of ice at the poles, or a gravitational tug from a passing celestial body, the entire crust could slip. It could rotate over the molten core. It sounds impossible. Yet Albert Einstein, the greatest mind of the 20th century, did not laugh at this theory. He wrote the foreword to Hapgood's book. Einstein argued that a buildup of ice could indeed cause a centrifugal force strong enough to shatter the Earth's equilibrium. Now, imagine what happens during such a shift. It is not a slow process. It does not take millions of years. It happens in a single terrifying epoch. Picture a continent sitting in a warm, temperate zone, basking in the sun. Forests cover the land, animals graze in the valleys. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake. Not a local earthquake, but a global shudder. The sky seems to spin. The stars change their position in the heavens. In a matter of days, or perhaps hours, that continent is physically dragged thousands of miles south. It is shoved into the polar circle. The temperature plummets. It drops not by a few degrees, but by 100 degrees. The moisture in the air turns instantly into diamond dust. The wind begins to scream, reaching speeds of 200 miles an hour. This is not a theoretical scenario. We have physical proof that something exactly like this happened on Earth roughly 12,000 years ago. We find this proof not in Antarctica, but at the other end of the world, in Siberia. For centuries, ivory hunters in Siberia have been finding the tusks of woolly mammoths buried in the permafrost. But sometimes they find more than just bones. They find entire bodies. The most famous is the Berezovka mammoth. When it was discovered, it was sitting upright. It had not died of old age. It had not died of starvation. In its mouth and in its stomach, scientists found undecomposed buttercups and grasses. Think about what this means. A buttercup is a delicate flower. It wilts within hours of being picked. For a buttercup to be found fresh in the stomach of a mammoth, the animal must have been frozen solid mere moments after eating it. Experts estimate that to freeze a creature the size of an elephant so quickly that its stomach contents do not rot, the temperature must drop to -150 degrees Fahrenheit instantly. This was not a slow ice age. This was a flash freeze. A sudden, violent event that stopped biology in its tracks. The mammoth didn't even have time to fall over. If this happened in the north, what happened in the south? If the crust shifted, Moving Siberia into the cold zone, it likely moved Antarctica into the cold zone at the same time. The green forests of Queen Maud Land, the rivers of the Orontius Phineas map, the cities of the ancient sea kings, they were all subjected to the same flash freeze. The snow began to fall, and it never stopped. Layer upon layer, year upon year, century upon century. The cities were buried. The temples were crushed or encased in ice. The history of that civilization was wiped from the face of the earth, hidden under a white blanket that would eventually grow to be 2 miles thick. This cataclysm matches perfectly with the legends found in every culture on Earth. The Great Flood. In the Bible, it is Noah. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, it is Utnapishtim. In the Indian Vedas, it is Manu. The story is always the same. The world was wicked, the gods were angry, and the waters rose. If the earth's crust shifted, the oceans would not simply sit still. They would slosh over the continents like water in a moving bowl. Tsunami waves kilometers high would sweep across the globe, destroying everything in their path. The end of the world was not a myth. It was a memory, a traumatic memory of the human species. But what civilization was lost in this disaster? The Greek philosopher Plato wrote of a great empire that existed 9,000 years before his time. He called it Atlantis. He described it as a continent larger than Libya and Asia put together, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules. He described it as a maritime superpower with concentric rings of water and land and temples covered in gold and orichalcum. Mainstream historians tell us Atlantis is a fable. They look for it in the Mediterranean, in the Caribbean, in the Atlantic, but they never find it. Perhaps they are looking in the wrong place. In 1995, authors Rand and Rose Flemath proposed a radical theory. They looked at the map of Antarctica without the ice. They looked at the shape of the landmass, and they compared it to Plato's description. Plato said Atlantis was an island continent. Antarctica is an island continent. Plato said it was beyond the Pillars of Hercules, Gibraltar. If you sail south from Gibraltar, the next landmass is Antarctica. Plato described great mountains in the north and a vast plain in the south. Antarctica fits this description perfectly. He said the city was destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune. A crust displacement fits this timeline perfectly. Could it be that the lost city of Atlantis is not underwater? Could it be that it is under ice? Imagine the capital of Atlantis, the concentric circles of water. When the flash freeze hit, those rings of water would have frozen instantly. The ships in the harbor would be trapped. The people would have fled into the great underground tunnels described in their legends, the Agartha network. The survivors of this catastrophe scattered across the world. They landed in Egypt. They landed in Peru. They landed in India. They were the civilizing heroes described in ancient myths. The 7 sages, the Viracocha, the Apkallu. They brought with them the knowledge of agriculture, astronomy, and architecture. They tried to rebuild what they had lost. They built the pyramids of Giza not as tombs, but as models of the mountains they left behind. They built them with the same mathematical precision, the same alignment to the stars. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy that we can barely match today. Who taught them this? The connection between Egypt and the South Pole is stronger than we think. The ancient Egyptians spoke of the land of Punt, a sacred ancestral homeland located to the south, reached by great sea voyages. They called it the God's Land. Was Punt the coast of Antarctica before the freeze? For thousands of years, the ice kept its secret. The wind howled over the buried ruins. The world forgot. The memory of the Golden Age faded into legend, and legend faded into myth. Antarctica became a blank spot on the map. Terra incognita. But the silence would not last forever. In the early 20th century, humanity began to return to the ice. At first, it was explorers like Shackleton and Scott racing for the glory of the pole. But soon, darker forces turned their gaze southward. In 1938, as the clouds of World War II were gathering over Europe, a ship left the port of Hamburg. It was the Schwabenland, a catapult ship capable of launching aircraft. On board were scientists, engineers, and soldiers of the Third Reich. Their destination was Queen Maud Land, the very same coastline depicted on the Piri Reis map. The Nazis were not there for scientific curiosity. They were there on a mission sanctioned by the highest levels of the SS. They were looking for something specific. The German occult societies, the Thule and the Vril, believed that the Aryan race had originated from a lost polar civilization. They believed that somewhere in the ice there was an entrance to the inner Earth. They called the territory New Schwabenland, New Swabia. Their pilots flew over the frozen wastes, dropping thousands of metal spikes stamped with the swastika, claiming the land for Germany. But they found more than just snow. They found the Bunger Hills, a massive oasis in the middle of the ice sheet where no snow lay. They found lakes that were not frozen. They found cave systems that went deep into the crust, heated by geothermal vents. And then the war began. The world's attention turned to the battlefields of Europe. But in the South Atlantic, a different kind of war was beginning. A silent war. German U-boats began to make regular trips to Antarctica. What were they carrying? Why were they taking mining equipment, rail tracks, and specialized drilling gear to the most inhospitable place on Earth? Rumors began to circulate in the intelligence communities of Britain and America. Rumors of Base 211, a fortress built under the ice, a last redoubt for the Reich, a place where they could continue their research into technologies that were far ahead of their time, technologies based on the ancient wisdom of the Vimanas. The war ended in 1945. Germany surrendered, but the U-boats did not all return. Dozens of submarines vanished, and in 1946, the United States decided that it was time to find out where they went. They did not send a diplomatic team. They sent an armada. The year is 1946. The world is exhausted. The smoke of the Second World War has barely cleared. Cities are in ruins, and nations are rebuilding. But in the Pentagon, the top brass of the US Navy are planning a mission that makes no sense in peacetime. They call it Operation Highjump. Officially, it is described to the public as a scientific expedition. The stated goal is to test military equipment in extreme cold conditions and to map the Antarctic coastline. But you do not need an aircraft carrier to map a coastline. You do not need a submarine. You do not need destroyers, tankers, and over 4,700 battle-hardened troops. This was not an expedition. This was an invasion force. The man chosen to lead this armada was a living legend, Admiral Richard E. Byrd. He was the most famous polar explorer of his time, the first man to fly over the South Pole. If anyone knew the secrets of the ice, it was Byrd. The fleet departed from Norfolk, Virginia in December 1946. They sailed south, cutting through the icy waters of the Ross Sea. Their mission was scheduled to last for 6 to 8 months. They carried enough supplies to build a permanent base, Little America 4. But things went wrong almost immediately. As the fleet approached the continent, they were met with weather conditions that defied forecasting. Massive storms battered the ships. But it wasn't just the weather. There were reports, erased from the official logs but preserved in the memories of the sailors, of strange lights in the sky. Lights that moved too fast to be stars and too intelligently to be meteors. On January 29, 1947, the first fatality occurred. An aircraft crashed under mysterious circumstances. But the true turning point came a few weeks later. Admiral Byrd took off in his plane for a reconnaissance mission over the interior of the continent. He was flying toward the South Pole. For hours, the radio transmission was normal. He reported on the ice conditions, the altitude, the temperature, and then the transmission changed. According to the alleged transcript of his secret diary, a document that has been debated by historians and conspiracy theorists for decades, Byrd reported that the landscape below him was changing. The white ice was disappearing. In its place, he saw a mountain range that was not on any map. As he flew closer, he realized the mountains were not covered in snow. They were green. He radioed back to base, his voice trembling with disbelief. "I see green valleys below," he said. "I see rivers. There is a forest growing on the slopes." He dropped his altitude to get a closer look. He reported seeing moss and grass. The external thermometer on his plane began to rise. It wasn't 70 degrees below zero anymore. It was 50 degrees above zero. He was flying over a geothermal oasis, a Shangri-La, hidden in the middle of the frozen continent. But the most shocking report was yet to come. Byrd claimed to see movement in the underbrush. He peered through his binoculars and saw an animal. It was large and hairy. It had tusks. It looked exactly like a woolly mammoth. An animal that was supposed to be extinct for 10,000 years was walking through a forest in Antarctica. Then, the radio crackled with static. Byrd reported that he was no longer alone in the sky. "They are closing in on my left and right wings," he said. "They are disc-shaped. They are radiant. They are marked with a symbol. It looks like a swastika." Byrd reported that his controls stopped working. His plane was being guided by an invisible tractor beam. A voice came over his radio, speaking in English with a slight German accent, or perhaps a Nordic accent. The voice said, "Welcome to our territory, Admiral. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax. You are in good hands." The official Navy report says simply that Byrd's plane was lost for 3 hours before returning to base. It does not explain where he was. It does not explain why, when he landed, he looked like a man who had seen a ghost. But the story doesn't end with a peaceful meeting. Following Byrd's return, chaos erupted. On February 26, 1947, a battle allegedly took place. A battle that has never been acknowledged by any government. Pilots from the aircraft carrier USS Philippine Sea reported that flying saucers emerged from the water. They didn't fly down from space. They flew up from the ocean depths. These craft moved silently and at incredible speeds. They had no wings, no tails, no visible engines. They could stop instantly and turn at right angles, maneuvers that would liquefy a human pilot inside a normal jet. The American planes, the best technology of 1947, were helpless. The discs fired beams of strange light that caused the electronics of the Navy planes to fry. One destroyer, the USS Murdoch, was reportedly damaged, though official records say it was scrapped later. Several aircraft were shot down. The invasion force was routed. Admiral Byrd gave the order to retreat. The mission, which was supposed to last 6 months, was abandoned after only 8 weeks. The mighty US Navy turned tail and ran from the ice. Upon his return to civilization, Admiral Byrd gave a candid interview to a journalist named Lee Van Atta aboard the command ship Mount Olympus. The interview was published in the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio on March 5, 1947. In this interview, Byrd was surprisingly blunt. He warned the world of a new reality. He said, "It is necessary for the USA to take defensive actions against enemy air fighters which come from the polar regions." He added, "In case of a new war, the United States would be attacked by fighters that are able to fly from one pole to the other with incredible speed." Byrd was not speaking metaphorically. He was speaking as a military man who had just assessed a superior enemy. Who was the enemy? Was it a secret Nazi contingent that had survived the war and perfected their Wunderwaffe, wonder weapons? Or was it something else? Something ancient? The German esoteric societies, the Thule and Vril, claimed they had received telepathic instructions on how to build anti-gravity engines from beings they called the Aldebaran Empire. They believed these beings lived in the hollow interior of the Earth. Could it be that the Nazis didn't invent the flying discs? Could it be that they simply found them? Imagine the scenario. The Germans arrive in Neuschwabenland in 1939. They explore the caves. They find the ruins of the ancient civilization we discussed, the civilization of the Piri Reis map. And inside those ruins, deep in the subterranean hangars of the White Island, they find the Vimanas, intact, waiting. Perhaps they spent the war trying to reverse engineer this technology. Perhaps Base 211 was not a factory, but an archaeological dig site. And when the Americans arrived with their guns and their arrogance, the guardians of the technology, or perhaps the original owners, decided to defend their sanctuary. After his interview, Admiral Byrd was recalled to Washington. He was interrogated by the security services. He was ordered to remain silent. His diaries were classified. The official story became equipment testing. The Battle of Antarctica was erased from history books, but the mystery refused to die. In the decades that followed, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. 12 nations, including the US and the USSR, enemies in the Cold War, agreed to ban all military activity in Antarctica. They agreed to make it a scientific preserve. Why? Why would bitter enemies agree to share a continent? Unless they were uniting to keep something contained, or to keep us out. Today, the no-fly zone over the South Pole is one of the most strictly enforced airspaces on the planet. Satellites orbiting over the pole often have data blackouts over certain coordinates. What are they hiding? Is it the entrance to the hollow Earth that Byrd claimed to see? The concept of a hollow Earth is ancient. The Buddhists speak of Agartha, a kingdom at the core of the planet, lighted by a smoky central sun. The entrance, they say, is hidden in the north and the south. The Inuit people have legends that their ancestors came from a warm land in the north, inside the earth. The Hopi Indians say they emerged from the third world beneath the ground. If the earth is hollow, or honeycombed with vast, continent-sized caverns, it would explain so much. It would explain where the water of the oceans goes. It would explain the auroras, and it would explain where a lost civilization could retreat to survive a cataclysmic ice age. Imagine a world inside our world, a biosphere protected from asteroids, solar flares, and freezing temperatures. A place where the mammoths never died out. A place where the gods of the Golden Age still live, watching us, waiting for us to mature. Admiral Byrd wrote in his diary that the master he met told him, "We have watched you detonate the atomic bomb. You have reached a point of no return. You are now capable of destroying your world. We will not allow it. Was this the message Byrd brought back to Washington? A warning from the inner Earth. As you lie there, safe in your bed, imagine the vast distance between you and the South Pole. Imagine the ice stretching out for thousands of miles. And then, imagine the ice opening. A massive circular door, camouflaged as a snowfield, sliding open to reveal a shaft of light shooting up into the aurora. Out of this shaft flies a silver disc, silent as a ghost. It hovers for a moment, checking the sensors, and then shoots off toward the horizon at a speed that turns it into a blur of light. They are still there, the Watchers. But the story of Antarctica is not just about the past. It is about the present. In the 21st century, new anomalies are appearing. The ice is melting, and it is revealing things that cannot be explained away as weather balloons or swamp gas. We are now going to turn our gaze to the modern era, to the pyramids that have been spotted by Google Earth, to the strange visits of world leaders, and to the connection between the frozen continent and the oldest texts of humanity, the Vedas. We have looked at the maps, we have looked at the ice, we have looked at the secret military operations, but to truly understand what might be hidden in Antarctica, we must look at the oldest records of human history. We must turn our eyes to the east, to the ancient wisdom of India. The Vedas and the Puranas are not just religious texts, they are historical chronicles. They describe a time when gods walked among men and when technology was indistinguishable from magic. They speak of the Vimanas. The word Vimana comes from Sanskrit. It translates to measuring out or traversing. In the ancient epics like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, Vimanas are described as flying machines. Not metaphors, not spiritual chariots, but physical nuts and bolts craft. The text known as the Samarangana Sutradhara dedicates over 200 verses to describing how to build these machines. It details their fuel, their propulsion, and even the clothes the pilots should wear. It says, "Strong and durable must the body of the Vimana be made, like a great flying bird of light material. Inside, one must place the Mercury engine with its iron heating apparatus underneath. By means of the power latent in the Mercury which sets the driving whirlwind in motion, a man sitting inside may travel a great distance in the sky." Listen to those words closely. Mercury engine. Driving whirlwind. This perfectly matches the descriptions of the Nazi Bell device and the flying discs seen by Admiral Byrd. A Mercury vortex engine creates a rotating electromagnetic field, anti-gravity. It creates a whirlwind of energy that lifts the craft without wings, without jets, and without sound. The texts describe different types of Vimanas. The Shakuna Vimana, shaped like a bird. The Sundara Vimana, shaped like a cylinder or a cigar. And the Rukma Vimana, shaped like a disc or a cone, shining with gold. These are the exact shapes reported by UFO witnesses today. The cigar-shaped motherships, the flying saucers, the triangles. Is it possible that the phenomenon we call aliens is actually ancients? Is it possible that the pilots of these craft are not from Zeta Reticuli, but from Earth? From the lost lands? The Vedas also give us a geography of the ancient world that is radically different from ours. They describe 7 great continents, or Dvipas. One of these is Shvetadvipa, the White Island. The Mahabharata describes Shvetadvipa as a land located in the far north or far south. The directions in ancient texts are often relative to the cosmic axis. It describes it as a place where the inhabitants do not eat, do not blink, and shine like the moon. It says they possess the highest knowledge of the universe. Could Shveta Dvipa be Antarctica? Consider the name, the White Island. Antarctica is the whitest place on Earth. Consider the location, isolated by the Ocean of Milk, the frozen, slushy waters of the Southern Ocean. Consider the inhabitants, beings of light, advanced beings. Perhaps the gods did not leave the earth when the Kali Yuga, the Age of Darkness, began. Perhaps they simply withdrew. They retreated to the one place where humanity could not follow, to the land behind the ice wall. The concept of the Yugas is crucial here. The Vedic time system says that civilization is not a straight line of progress. We didn't start as cavemen and become astronauts. Instead, time is a circle, a cycle. There is the Satya Yuga, the Golden Age, where humanity is spiritual, telepathic, and technologically advanced. Then the Treta Yuga, then the Dvapara Yuga, and finally the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, where we are now. An age of materialism, war, and short lifespans. The Vedas say that at the end of the Kali Yuga, the cycle restarts. The ice melts. The knowledge returns. Is Antarctica a time capsule from the Satya Yuga? Think about the pyramids recently spotted in the Ellsworth Mountains. If the ancient architects built pyramids in Egypt to stabilize the energy of the planet, would they not build them at the poles as well? The poles are the energetic axis of the Earth. They are the points where the magnetic field enters and exits. A pyramid at the South Pole would be the most powerful energy generator on the planet. And it seems the modern elite know this. Let's return to the strange events of 2016 and 2017. We mentioned Patriarch Kirill and John Kerry. But there were others. Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, was evacuated from Antarctica after a medical emergency. While he was there, he allegedly posted a tweet, which was quickly deleted, showing a picture of a pyramid-like mountain with the caption, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." Whether the tweet was real or a hoax, the panic was palpable. And then there is the black goo conspiracy. A strange substance rumored to have been found in the blue ice runways. A sentient, programmable matter. Is this the Amrita or the Soma of the gods? Or is it a weapon? The Mahabharata describes weapons that sound terrifyingly like nuclear bombs. The Brahmastra. It describes a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. It describes an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as the 1,000 suns. It says that after the weapon was used, the hair and nails fell out, pottery broke without cause, and food became poisoned. These are the exact symptoms of radiation sickness. If the ancient civilization destroyed itself with nuclear war 12,000 years ago, Antarctica might be the bunker where the survivors hid the technology, vowing never to use it again. But we are digging it up. We are drilling into the ice cores. We are melting the glaciers. We are waking the sleeper. The bloop sound recorded by NOAA might be the sound of machinery starting up deep underground. A low-frequency hum that vibrates through the bedrock. Listen to the silence of your room again. Can you hear a hum? Many people around the world report hearing the hum, a low, drone-like noise that drives them crazy, but no microphone can pick up. Is this the resonance of the Earth changing? Is it the frequency of the Vimana engine spinning up? The connection between the Vedas and the ice is the missing link. It explains why the Nazis went there. They were obsessed with Sanskrit texts. Himmler carried a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. They knew that the Aryan ancestors were the Vedic masters of the North and South Poles. It explains why the US government is so secretive. If they admitted that ancient flying machines exist, The oil economy would collapse overnight. The religious control systems would crumble. We would realize that we are not the first advanced civilization on Earth. We are just the latest, and perhaps the least wise. Imagine a library buried under the ice. A library not of books, but of crystals. Crystals that store terabytes of data, holographic records of the time before the moon was in the sky, records of the genetic engineering of mankind. This is what they are guarding. The Ark of Gabriel, the Hall of Records, the City of the Caesars. Different names, same place. As we drift toward the end of our journey, we must ask ourselves, are we ready to know? If the ice melts and reveals the Golden City, will we embrace the wisdom, or will we try to steal the weapons? The ancient guardians are watching. They have seen civilizations rise and fall before. They are patient. They have time. For them, 1,000 years is like a day. The ice is their shield, but the shield is cracking. We have traveled far tonight. We have sailed with the ancient maps of Piri Reis. We have stood in the freezing winds with Admiral Byrd. We have listened to the hum of the Vimanas and deciphered the secrets of the Vedas. The pieces of the puzzle are laid out before us. The map, the shift, the ice, the ruins, the silence. But now, it is time to step back. It is time to let the intellect rest and let the imagination take flight. Because the true secret of Antarctica is not found in a government report or a scientific journal. It is found in the dreamtime. It is found in the memory of the soul. Let your body sink deeper into the mattress. Feel the weight of gravity gently pulling you down, grounding you, holding you safe. The questions of the world can wait. The mysteries of history will still be there tomorrow. For now, there is only you and the white, endless peace of the polar night. Imagine that the ice is melting, not with catastrophic flooding, but with a gentle, magical warmth. Imagine the 2 miles of glacial ice turning into mist, rising up into the atmosphere like a great white veil lifting from the face of a sleeping beauty. Beneath the mist, the land begins to breathe again. The brown rock turns green. Moss spreads across the valleys like a velvet carpet. Ferns unfurl their leaves, reaching for a sun that hangs low and golden on the horizon. You are there. You are standing on the shores of the Ross Sea, but it is not frozen. The water is a deep, crystalline turquoise, lapping gently against a beach of black volcanic sand. The air is warm. It smells of ozone, pine needles, and ancient flowers that have not bloomed for 12,000 years. Look up. The sky is a twilight purple, painted with the dancing ribbons of the aurora australis. Green and pink lights ripple across the heavens, reflecting in the calm waters of the bay. And floating silently in that sky, you see them, the Vimanas, great ships of silver and gold, glowing with a soft inner light. They move without sound, like clouds drifting in the wind. They are not threatening. They are guardians. They are watching over the rebirth of the world. You walk inland. You pass through a forest of giant cycad trees. The ground is soft beneath your feet. Ahead of you, nestled in a valley between the mountains, lies the city. It is not a city of gray concrete and steel. It is a city of crystal and light. Spires of translucent stone rise up, catching the colors of the aurora. The buildings seem to grow out of the earth itself, in perfect harmony with nature. There are no roads, only gardens. There is no noise, only the sound of water flowing in fountains and the gentle hum of energy. This is Shvetadvipa, the White Island, the sanctuary. This is the memory that humanity has been searching for. The memory of a time when we were at peace, when we were one with the planet. You walk towards the city. You feel a sense of belonging. You are not a stranger here. You are returning home. The gates of the city are open. There are no guards. As you enter, you feel a wave of pure relaxation wash over you. It starts at the top of your head and flows down to your toes. Every muscle releases its tension. Every worry dissolves. In the center of the city is a great library, but there are no books, only light. You sit by a fountain in the center of the square. The water sparkles. You realize that the ice was never a prison. It was a cocoon. It was keeping this place safe, keeping you safe, until the time was right. The hum of the city is a lullaby, a frequency that speaks directly to your heart. It tells you that everything is okay. It tells you that the past is never lost. It is only waiting to be remembered. Close your eyes in this dream city. Feel the warmth of the eternal sun on your skin. The wind whispers through the crystal spires. Shh. The world is vast. The universe is old. And you are a part of it all. Drifting, floating, sailing on the ocean of time. The snow is falling softly now in your mind, covering the tracks, hiding the secrets once again. Let the white blanket tuck you in. Let the silence become your sleep. The Chronicle is closed for tonight. The map is rolled up. The journey is done. Sleep now. Deep, dreamless sleep. Into the white. Into the night. Good night.